Joining us now, three men who know this Florida issue better than pretty much most everyone in the country. Barry Richard is currently Andrew Gillum's attorney. He also represented George W. Bush in the 2000 Florida recount. Miguel DeGrande was also part of that Bush legal team, and Joseph Clark was attorney for Secretary of State Katherine Harris during that very same recount, representing her against all these legal challenges. Joseph, I want to start with you tonight. Do you think it's wise for Governor Scott to move on the offensive, as I do, against Broward and Palm Beach counties, or is that premature?
No, I don't think it's premature. You got to be, you have to sort of stay ahead of the flow of what's going on. I think I was not aware of the lawsuit until I drove over here tonight, but obviously all he wants to do is just to make sure that there's judicial supervision of what's going on and that things don't happen that ought not happen.
Barry, I want to go to you. You're representing Andrew Gillum. He did concede the other night, but as you said earlier tonight, I heard you said, look, that's not a contract. I mean, he thought that the moment warranted a concession. But your client and you say you're watching things very closely with the vote count. Last I checked, I think it was about 40,000 or so votes separating Gillum, of course, and Ron DeSantis. What are you looking at tonight?
Well, there's a vast difference between 2000 and now. In 2000, recounts were precipitated by the candidates who had to request them and got to select which counties they were in. The legislature, as a result of 2000, has significantly changed Florida statutes, so the candidates really have nothing to do with it now. If the margin between the candidates is less than 0.5%, there's an automatic so-called machine recount where the ballots are sent through the machines again. If it's less than 0.25%, then there's an automatic statewide manual recount. As far as Mr. Gillum is concerned, he's just waiting for the system to play itself out. This is part of the electoral process. It's part of the vote counting, and he'll accept the results.
Miguel, I want to go to you. I think a lot of people watching across the country find it very odd, this whole process of the vote count extending so many days. Explain to the viewers why that is, with provisional ballots, what those are, and moving into absentee military counts, which I understand in Florida have not been counted yet.
Well, provisional and military absentees are one issue, but what we can't understand is why is it that mail-in ballots and early votes are still being counted and have not yet been properly recorded. According to our laws, those votes are supposed to be uploaded the day before election so that they could be reported half an hour after the votes close the next day. So we're at a loss to understand what's happening in Palm Beach and Broward. And it's the same two counties that can't seem to get it right out of our 67 counties in the state of Florida.
Well, what about the concern, I want to go back to you, Joseph, about Brenda Snipes in Broward and the concern that Marco Rubio, he was on another network, no, he's on our network earlier tonight, and he just was basically laying waste to what happens in Broward County. The president tweeted out about this also tonight, which we'll put up on the screen. We put it up on the screen, and then I'll go back to you, Joseph. This is what the president said tonight. He said law enforcement is looking into another big corruption scandal having to do with election fraud in Broward and Palm Beach, Florida. Florida voted for Rick Scott. Your comment tonight, Joseph.
Well, as Barry said, our legislature thought that they addressed some of the problems to avoid this kind of thing from happening. It's really kind of embarrassing to the state that we have to have this kind of thing go on. And as you know, my county, my home county is Miami-Dade. We don't have this kind of thing happening here. And if, because Ms. Snipes apparently has this cloud hanging over her head, and then if there is indeed ballots that are now showing up, they shouldn't be. I mean, the only ballots we should be waiting for at this point in time are the military ballots, which I understand have until November 16. So I think, we need to make sure that we take whatever steps are necessary with the judiciary to protect the integrity of the system so that we don't have these problems. And I think Barry will agree that one of the reasons we still have this is that we don't have statewide controls over balloting. It's done on a county-by-county basis, and that's why you can have these outliers.
Got it. Okay, so Barry, I didn't practice election law, but I remember being down in Miami-Dade during the recount. I think I remember seeing you guys down there at the time. But this is what Rick Scott said. This was just a short while ago, referring to Mark Elias in Tallahassee. Let's watch.
I will not sit idly by while unethical liberals try to steal this election from the great people of Florida. Senator Nelson hired one of Hillary Clinton's lawyers from D.C., and the first thing he did was tell reporters that he's here to win the election. Now he's here to try to steal the election and to try to thwart the will of the voters of Florida.
Barry, your reaction, tough words from Rick Scott tonight. He's certainly not going to sit back and what he believes is going to be an election stolen from him at the hands of Ms. Snipes.
Well, I have no reaction. In the first place, I'm not involved in that race. And in the second place, it's not my purpose to become involved in the political debate. I'm just a lawyer representing a client legally, and those things are beyond my sphere of representation.
Oh, the old Brendan Sullivan thing. I'm not talking about it. I respect that. Good for you, Barry. Miguel.
Well, no, that's not what I do. I'm a lawyer. I'm representing a client.
I got it.
I represent Republicans and Democrats.
I didn't say otherwise. I appreciate it. Miguel, I want to go to you on this because obviously we want to protect the integrity of the vote. I agree with Stacey Abrams and everyone else who said every vote should count. If you voted and you're eligible to vote, your vote should count. I think what people watch this and they're like, how is this in the United States of America that this kind of stuff seems to drag on? People are talking about this dragging on another few weeks in Florida. And I think that's what kind of eats away at people, both Democrats, Republicans, and people on the, in the middle.
Laura, I can't agree more. I lost my first election to the Florida House of Representatives by one vote in 1988. So I'm very keen on the fact that every vote needs to be counted and an election needs to be tabulated fairly. What concerns us at this point is the irregularities that are occurring when we can't view the ballots being, for example, the ballots that are damaged being duplicated, which is required by law in the presence of witnesses, and we're denied access to that process. When we start hearing that in Palm Beach County, there are situations where they are actually taking, steps that are outside of the public domain, that they are divining voter intent when that is the exclusive providence of the canvassing board, and putting those as recorded votes instead of bringing them to the canvassing board for their determination in a public process, we should all be very concerned.
Yeah, they have to be verified by the proper channels, not just divined, intention divined. And by the way, Gilliam's campaign put out a tweet. The Gilliam campaign is looking for volunteers to help cure leftover ballots. What does that mean, Barry, since you will talk about your client? We're almost out of time. I get it, guys. So cure leftover ballots. What does that mean, Barry?
To cure leftover ballots?
Yeah, that's what your campaign sent out. What does that mean?
I don't know what it means. I'm not.
Okay, you represent them, but you don't know what that means. Okay. All right. So
I don't know what it means because I don't know what that reference was to. It's not something I'm involved in. I'm not trying to be difficult for you, but when I was asked to come on the show, it was to address the differences between the 2000 campaign
we get it. That's the point you made earlier.
And this one, and you're asking me questions that are beyond my area of knowledge.
I'm sorry. I didn't know you were so sensitive about what. So you can't talk about what the campaign that you're representing
but I'm
is
not.
saying. Got it. Okay.
Listen. I'm not a political spokesman. I'm a lawyer who represents clients. If you want to ask me about that, I'm happy to respond.
Well, this is your client, I imagine, talking about curing ballots.
You asked me what a statement meant when it said cure ballots. That's not a legal term. I didn't write the statement, and I don't know what it means.
We appreciate it. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. And next.